Hello, everyone, and welcome to another write-in. I want to say a special thank you and welcome to Megan. Megan, why don't you just do a quick introduction of yourself for whoever ends up watching this video?
So I'm Megan. I'm a writer as well, and I've been in the last few live streams. So if you've seen those, then you kind of know my introduction. I'm a young adult, fiction, fantasy, sci-fi kind of writer, and I don't know. That's about it. I'm working on a novel right now.
Cool. Sorry, I thought it was someone for us. Okay, so yeah, just a quick introduction for me as well, because I keep talking like everyone's supposed to know who I am. I'm Misha Garrick. I write young adult and adult fantasy, and I have a series out called War of Six Crowns, as well as one lonely novella that's supposed to be part of a trilogy called Endless. So what I will be working on is book 3 in the War of Six Crowns trilogy. Or not trilogy, it's not, oh goodness, it's a series. It's a 6-book series, so it's not even almost a trilogy, but it's a series. Oh my god. We are starting so well this morning, or this evening. Oh.
Okay.
Okay, let me try that again. Yeah, so I am going to be writing book 3 in my fantasy series. There we go. In case anyone is wondering why I am a bit loopy and out of my depth, that would be because we had a massive storm last night, so I really had very little sleep and that what I got wasn't really all that good. So just stay with me, guys, because while I am really random at the moment, I am doing my best. So that's just as an aside. And also, same with as if the signal is a bit bad, the wind is still blowing, although it's not storm level anymore. So hopefully everything should run smoothly, except for my crazy things that I'm going to be saying at random sometimes. Hopefully not too much. Okay, so right. Tonight, we wanted to talk about picking our topic or our projects for Camp NaNoWriMo. So, Megan, why don't you start us off? What do you usually consider when you are thinking about doing Camp Nano? What do you think makes you decide what project you want to work on?
Generally, because it's Camp Nano and you can decide all the goals, I try to choose something that perhaps I've set on a back burner that I've thought about working on, but I never really took the time to get into it. So if there's something kind of there, then I'll start with that. Otherwise, I kind of focus on what am I working on at the moment? Is there enough of that left to work on that I can make it through the month working on it? Is there some kind of like goal? So if it's like I'm halfway through a novel, then it'll be like, let me try to finish this in the month, if I can. And if it's editing, then I just decide to go through and edit like maybe for an hour each day or something. So it kind of depends on what I'm working on now or what I've haven't had the chance to work on. So then I'm like, okay, well, this is a good opportunity to actually force yourself to work on this, something that you've wanted to write, but that you just haven't given the time to yet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's also my general idea, is that thing that you've always wanted to work on, but you just never seem to get the time. That's usually the thing that I go for myself as well, because Camp Nano, in a sense, is a lot about making time to get something done, even if it's not as big a goal as you would set for a normal NaNoWriMo. It's just, if you're going to say, well, I want to write 10,000 words, you still need to make those 10,000 words almost a kind of priority. So for me, I think that thing on the back burner, or that thing that you really need to finish, or something that you're pushing to get done, that's usually my first choice when it comes to writing a Camp Nano project. That's usually going to be my first choice for a project. because it's not a nice dovetail because it's something you want to do, so it's not really going to be something you necessarily have to push as hard in order to get going with it when you're doing your Camp Nano.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Other than that, I kind of tend to, if I'm starting from scratch and I have to pick something like completely random, then what I usually do is I pick the project that gives me the fullest idea of what I still have to do. Because I'm not a, a plotter, so I don't plot ahead of time when I'm doing rough drafts. And so I don't like, or how can I put it? It's probably not a good idea for me to start something where I have very little information about what I'll be writing, because that's just a really good way to get stuck like halfway through the project. So that's kind of my consideration is, do I know what I want to do? If it's something that I want to really do, that's my first option. Otherwise, I just do the thing that I know that it's going to be the easiest to write. But mostly I'm the kind of person, I actually, and I have to admit this, is I work on more than one project basically at all times. So yeah, that's kind of, so for me, I kind of just sidestep a lot of my own issues just by having more than one thing planned for Camp Nano.
Yeah, that works too. If you have like a group of things, if they're small, like if you had ideas for a bunch of short stories, or if you had, just different scenes like within different novels that you wanted to work on,
Yeah,
um, then you could kind of space that apart and say, okay, well, these are going to be my goals for each of these projects, and you can work on something different so you're not stuck in the same thing and get bored with it or
yeah,
stuck. Writer's block.
ooh, yeah, absolutely. That's actually because that's how it got started for me, was with the actual normal NaNoWriMo, like the November one. I basically had a situation where when I draft my rough drafts tend to be short. So I'll say I'll write a full story, but I'm a very I write very thinly, if I can put it that way. I'm really just going for it. So I don't stop for details and descriptions or anything like that, because it's holding me back from getting the story idea down. So for me, what happens is that sometimes I'll write a novel and I'll say, okay, this month, this November, I am going to do XYZ, and then I'll get it done. And I'm doing really well, like 1,600 words every day or whatever. And then I'll get to like 35 to 40K words in total. And then the book is done and I don't have a backup, and then I'm stuck. So that was kind of what got me into this idea of always having a backup and a backup idea going at the same time, because I don't ever like being on a roll with my writing and then just getting stuck because of the fact that I just didn't have anything else to do at the time. So that's kind of where it got started for me. But then I also found that it's very useful to have the backup and the backup, because writer's block to me isn't about not being able to write at all. It's just not knowing where you're supposed to be going with your current project that you're working on at a given time. So it's actually really a waste of time to be worried about writer's block when you could just be working on something else. So I like having something else going at the same time. And yeah, so that's kind of where I come from with that. I just quickly want to just also say a welcome to Tracy Ann and also to Shannon Caper. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate seeing you guys in the chat. Yeah, so what do you have any other considerations for what when you're picking projects, Megan? Or also Tracy and Shannon, let me know as well. What do you think about when you want to decide what you're going to be working on for Camp NaNoWriMo? Yeah, just drop us a message.
Yeah. I guess if I was to say something else regarding like what I choose. So I kind of go in another direction, um, which is kind of opposite of what you do. If there's like this really new idea that I'm thinking about, I mean, I definitely
Hmm.
have sort of backups, like you said, just in case. But if there's
Yeah,
something that I've thought about, but I haven't really put enough thought into it, then I'll think, well, let's take the time to actually see whether or not this is something that could go somewhere. And so I put in the effort, so maybe the first week or so, I find out whether or not this is something that I have a lot of like excitement for. And then if I don't, then I go back on one of those backups and say, okay, well, then I know that I need to work on this. And I know at least where that's going, so I can work on this. But if I actually really like it, then I'll just, do like the whole rough draft in the month because you just have so much excitement. You're like, oh, wait, this is great. Let me keep going with it.
yeah,
So if you can find like something like that, that's more like off the cuff, you've got almost nothing planned and it's just spur of the moment. What can you actually get done?
mm. Yeah. No, definitely. It's the same with me. So I just have to say it sounds completely opposite to what I just said. So let me just explain where I'm coming from. So when I say that it's something that I have to know where I'm going, it's, for example, my kind of personal rule with writing is that with a rough draft, I like to know the climactic point of my novel. So that's basically it. Anything else, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I just have to point that out because I realized when you're saying, no, you're going the opposite way. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're really not. So I just had to explain what I'm talking about. No. So um, I basically, when I rough draft, I start with a character idea of who I'm kind of wanting to write about, and then preferably just knowing where that person is going. And that's basically it. Then I just go mad. But it does help if you do it that way and you're not a plotter, like I am not a plotter at all. It is just useful to have like at least a backup plan because like Megan just pointed out, it's just like, yeah, you get stuck or you just realize that no, you're not really into the story as much as you thought you would be. So that has happened to me as well. But yeah, so that's kind of where it comes from for me. Is just for me, Camp Nano is kind of this great time to actually do exploration because you're making this time, and so it's very nice to actually just say, but okay, so I'm just going to have fun with this and see where it goes. But at the same time, I have to say that the times when I actually win Camp NaNoWriMo is actually when I'm rewriting my stuff because I already know exactly what I'm doing. So then it's just a matter of writing word counts every day and keeping at it until the book is done. But that's kind of, I don't know, it feels, I don't want to say it feels like cheating because it's not cheating. It's for me, if you do Camp Nano, or even NaNoWriMo, for me, it's about just doing the thing. It doesn't matter what that thing ends up being. But it just feels for me doing a rewrite for Camp Nano, it makes it just too easy. I like to suffer a bit, it seems. So I think that's kind of where my problem comes from. But yeah, so I prefer to rough draft or edit.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just see Shannon says, I used to think I needed a new project, but anymore I work on whatever I'm working on. I typically have my next project ready, so if I finish one, I jump in with the next one. Yeah, I also people have a thing of saying like, yeah, it has to be a new project, especially when it's NaNoWriMo, but I found that it's actually better not to start with a new project in the sense that um how can I put it? A lot of people get stuck like right after the introductory third of a novel. So if you're already past that point and you're going to be writing, then usually it's because you kind of have a feeling of where it's going already, and so you're less likely to get stuck. So for me as well, I just like to go with whatever at the time is going on. So usually even when I'm rough drafting, I will actually have started rough drafting for even a normal NaNoWriMo. I start the week before because I just like to be in that swing already rather than having to put extra pressure on myself of actually starting a completely new project while also having to chase a specific daily word count goal. So I just find it a lot easier to do it that way as well. So it's nice to see someone else does it.
Yeah, because it is daunting if you're starting something new, because there is that like that potential that you won't actually manage to write anything, because you get to that point where you said you just don't know what's actually going to happen. So you get stuck thinking of all the different possibilities, or you get stuck wondering what actually those possibilities could be.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think the past maybe 4 or 5 sessions, Camp Nano and NaNoWriMo, I've actually worked on stuff that I've been working on without starting anything new, because
Yeah.
in the off months, I'm still working, so I'm still working on those pieces, and it's like I'm not going to start something new again when I just started it maybe like a month ago or something.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I'm the same. It's definitely for me as well. It's this thing of I try to be disciplined with new projects because my brain is constantly figuring out new stuff. So at the moment, I only have like a backdraft of about 40 books that I still need to write. That I don't know if I'll ever get to them. But but the thing is, if I chase down every new idea that ever comes up to me, I would never be able to finish anything. So for me, that's kind of what it's about, is to say no, but okay, this is a nice idea, but right now I'm busy with this. So what happens sometimes is that on occasion it happens that yes, NaNoWriMo happens, or Camp Nano for that matter, because I'm staying on topic.
Right.
Um, so Camp NaNoWriMo project would come along while I am not having started it. Oof, let me try that again. Sometimes Camp NaNoWriMo comes along when I haven't started a new project yet. Yes! Okay, there I have it in order. Okay, so when that happens, then I just start a new project with whatever I feel like. But if it happens that I've already started a new project, then I just continue with it because I don't see the point in pausing a project that I'm already working on and I already have momentum on just to go work on something else because of someone else's arbitrary rule around doing Camp NaNoWriMo with a new book. So that's kind of where I'm with that as well. It's just there are so many benefits from my point of view to starting with a book before Camp Nano, or if you have already started a book, to just continue with it, that I just don't think it's even really worth worrying about pausing it or anything like that because it just doesn't make sense to me. Let's see. Tracy Ann says, I was planning on being done with my current project, but I won't be. But I created an AuthorTube cabin for different projects. So I guess I will work on that instead. Okay. No, well, I mean that's a dilemma, I think. Um, but you could always follow our terrible slash brilliant examples and just like do both. Finish the one, and if it's close to being done, then you can just get started on the new project as soon as the first one is finished. I would do that personally, but it's you do you. So you let us know what you decide because it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Author twos seem like so much work, so
Yeah.
I don't think I have the energy for them. So that's why I have not created my own. But I
Ah.
don't know if you have any tips. So then if in the future I actually find that energy, then I'll decide whether or not I actually want to do that.
Yeah, one day we can do like a specific dedicated video to
To
doing something with AuthorTube tips. But given the fact that at the moment I am terrible about updating my channel myself, yeah, I'm probably not the person to ask at the moment, but I am working on it. It's just, yeah, I've been. having a crazy time. I wanted to actually start updating my channel again this weekend,
Hmm.
but then my computer broke. So then I had to buy a new computer for
Yeah.
my just to edit videos and stuff. And then I bought it, and I haven't had a chance to edit it since I got the new computer. So I have a bunch of videos waiting to be edited, but it's just like not happening. But I'm hoping to get it done. But now, because it's almost the end of the month, I'm kind of thinking that I should probably consider not updating anything until after Camp Nano, because it's the idea had been to schedule right through Camp Nano and get it done. But now it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
if I do anything, it's probably going to be happening during Camp Nano, and that seems a bit extreme. So I'll just,
I'm glad you consider that a little bit extreme.
yeah, yeah. I try to be realistic. I'm not very good at being realistic, but I try. I do my best. So, let's see. So Tracy says, "Yeah, I can. I will pick at both since they are two very different things, and my new project is a script."
Um,
Cool. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I've thought about scripts a lot, doing like writing scripts and things, but I've never gotten around to actually learning how to do it. So, the story side I'm not really worried about, but the technique of actually creating a script and structuring it correctly so that other people can read it, that bit is just a little bit too beyond my grasp at the moment, but it's something that I want to learn at one stage. And then Tracy says, I was doing well with updating weekly, but then this week kicked my butt and I missed posting. Yeah, that's the thing that happened with me as well, was I missed like a week, and then it became 2 weeks, and then by the third week, the cat had jumped down my camera. So the cat, I don't even know which cat it was, but a cat jumped the camera off of the shelf that I kept it on, and then it was broken. So I was like, oh gosh, so now I can't record anymore. So I actually have the video that I was supposed to schedule for like a year ago. I still have that video, and it still hasn't been scheduled because I just kind of lost all motivation to do it at that stage. And then now I'm kind of thinking like, I have the video. Should I actually put it up now? Because I don't even live in the house anymore where that video was filmed. So it just feels a bit weird to go put that back up, and it's going to be confusing. So I'll just decide one day and do it, or refilm it maybe. I might do that because it is something interesting. She says I'm going to edit and write during the stream so I can post Tuesday as normal. That's a cool idea. That is a very nice idea. I will probably one day I will follow your example. It will not be today, but I will follow Tracy's example and actually write scripts during the stream one day. I'll tell you guys when that happens.
oh my.
Yeah. So what will you be working on today, Megan?
Oh, so I was having trouble deciding because I wasn't sure. I told you I was working on that news story,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's the problem with news stories, figuring out where you're going. So I
Mm-hmm.
know where it's going. It's just I wrote about 2 chapters, and I I'm not loving the pacing right now. It feels kind of. It actually feels like it's going too quickly, and
Oh
so
yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, should I just keep going how it is, and go back and then figure out where those areas are rushing and try to, expand them, or should I um, work on something else until I feel like I'm actually more in that world? Because it feels like it's rushing and it's too distant. So I'm at a little bit of a dilemma trying to figure out what I'm going to do, but I don't know.
It does. That's something that I've hit upon as well, especially in my rough drafts, and that's kind of why I'm such a sparse writer. Because if it does feel like I'm rushing and it's going too fast, then I just wrap it up and I rewrite. And sometimes, if it's not good enough to rewrite, I just redraft. So
Mhm.
I'll start with a handwritten draft again and just see where it goes the second time. But yeah, it's difficult. It's not really. It's if you've been there, you know what you mean, because I know what you're talking about. I've gotten there as well. But yeah, I
Yeah.
I kind of at the moment I actually have a novel like that that's waiting, that one day I will get to, because I kind of hit upon this thing of, well, where am I going with this? And then I just put it aside and said, well, I'll get back to this after the next book. And then I did the next book, but then I got a better idea. So I just worked on that. And then, so it's a future me problem. One day, future me will sort it out, hopefully. But yeah, but I know it's horrible. So you're going back to the old draft and the other project, I mean.
Uh, maybe. I'm
Maybe.
gonna kind of decide in the moment. I'm gonna like flip through a bunch of different things. So the first write-in we do, I'll probably be like very unproductive because for probably 5 minutes of it, I'll be trying to figure out what I'm doing.
Yeah. We'll basically spend 15 minutes watching you doing like, what,
Like,
no,
yep.
something like that. Yeah, I'm honestly, I haven't decided what I'll be working on either. So
All right.
but it's really, my reasoning is simpler than that. It's just that I have like a million things that I have to do at the moment, because I've been so far behind this week that I
Yeah.
still haven't finished my work. And then what happened was I had a minor burnout on Friday, because on Thursday I was working on that project for my freelance work, and I got so tired because I only finished at like 11 p.m. at night on Thursday. I finished that project. So on Friday I started working on a new thing, and then my brain was just like, no, 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 no. Nothing's going to happen to you today. So I did what I could, and then I just stopped. But now I still have to get some stuff done. But now I'm kind of also wondering whether I should try working on the other stuff, or if I should just wait for Monday, because I am on flexible time. So the only person who's chasing myself down at the moment is me. So that's kind of the pain in the backside of being a freelancer, is if you are a type A perfectionist type person like I am, you kind of whip yourself unnecessarily to do stuff. So it's the kind of thing that I still have to figure out for myself, is whether or not I should be doing that right now. So I guess we'll see. Let's see what the other guys are doing.
Yeah. Let's see.
Let's see. Okay, I just want to say welcome to James S. Aaron. Thank you very much for joining us. It's really cool. And then Tracy, oh, that's what I read. And Shannon just sent an LOL, so she found it annoying, amusing, not annoying. Sorry for that, but so she found something. Oh goodness, why do I keep wanting to say I'm annoying? Something she found something amusing, but I can't tell what it was, because unfortunately there's a lag between the video and the chat. So I'm going to have to say something was amusing, but we don't know what. So I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, I'm terrible. So,
It's okay. You're tired. You've got an
yeah.
excuse.
Yeah. It's the weirdest feeling at the moment, because I actually feel oddly energetic, but it's just, I think it's my adrenaline that kicked in. It's just like all over the place. So it's going to be fun. It's probably actually the funny thing is if I'm this kind of level of tired, it's actually when I do my best writing, because I don't have any like voices in my head telling me that I'm bad at what I'm doing or anything like that. So it's really nice uninhibited writing to just write at this stage. So maybe I should just try writing, but we'll see. Yeah, so for once we're actually kind of on schedule. I'm really proud of us. We're getting better at this, Megan. I'm really proud of us. This is really
That
good.
was just
Okay.
like 4 weeks.
We've been practicing for months on end, and finally we've reached the point where we can actually look at the watch and go, oh my goodness, this is actually time to write. So
Yes.
yes, so well done. Okay, fist bump. But yeah, okay. So are we going to schedule a 15-minute writing sprint right now?
Yes, let's do 15 because then that'll give me 10 minutes to actually write.
Brilliant. Okay. Let's do it. Okay, I'm going to count down, and just for any of the new viewers at the moment, if things go really quiet, we kind of have a rule about muting our mics when we start sprinting, because a lot of us people on the Hangouts actually have a liking of music as we write, so we don't want to get any copyright strikes or anything like that. So that's why it's so deadly quiet. Right. Okay. So I'm going to count down, and I'll see you guys in 15 minutes. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay, time. How did you guys do? I see Megan has vanished. So I hope you didn't desert me. Oh, there you are. Phew, for a moment I was
Sorry.
worried I was going to have to talk to myself for the rest of the evening.
No, I sneezed and then I was like, I gotta go off for a second. And I thought I'd be back before you called time. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I was in the other room when you called it.
Oh well, okay. No, it was just like, oh my gosh, and then you were there. Oh, it's okay.
Okay. Yes.
So
How
let's
did
quick.
you do?
Yeah, I finished. I decided to just at least do like one of my job stuff for my freelance work. So I finished that. So I'm like, yeah, victorious.
Okay.
So yeah. So now the next thing is to try and figure out what I'm going to do for the next sprint. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, how did you do?
Um, I did all right. So, um, I did go back to the news story. Um,
Okay.
there was this one little part where I wanted this scene between the main character and her father. And so I started on that and I actually got 426 words. Oh, that's nice. Um,
Oh,
so yeah, that's actually where I'm at. So um, hmm. I did actually kind of skip around though. At first, I was like, I'm gonna work on this one or that one, and it took a little while to decide. But then I was like, all right, I think I can at least do this one part because it's like there's a hole where I just kind of skipped over it. I was like, I'll come back and do that later. So um, I'm just filling in that hole, which sometimes kind of makes it easier because I already know that I just need to join it up to the other two pieces. So
yeah, nicely done. Well done. Let's see quickly what the commenters said in the chat because I see we have quite a few comments coming in. Okay,
yeah.
so Shannon said she was laughing at not knowing what we should be working on because she's in the same boat. Yeah, I'm glad to know we're not the only people. I just hope that our boats won't sink because that's going to be unfortunate. But yeah. And then the Naked Firefly came by again, and she said, "Hey, so hello, welcome to the live stream." And then Tracy Ann says, "I got about 4.5 minutes of my video edit, and video edits are so slow." Uh, I know, I know. That is, I actually had to edit a video for my freelance job, same job that I'm actually was working on in the sprint, and a 3-minute video took me, I want to say, 8 hours. 8 hours to make a 3-minute video. And it's not even like not even a complicated video or anything like that. It was just putting the videos in and putting or the it was images with music, but finding the music and putting everything together and getting everything in the same rhythm and all that kind of stuff. It's not as easy as people would think to actually properly edit a video. So hats off to you for Tracy for getting that much done because that's really impressive. And then Shannon says she's working on her outlines. Good going, Shannon. I've been just before I started doing the live stream, I started watching your video about doing the outlines. So sounds like really involved and very challenging work. So I really hope that it works out well for you and that you sort out your challenge, your I want to say challenge, your difficult situation because I saw you were talking about it was a new way of doing things. So I hope you managed to sort that out for yourself. And then Tracy again says, it usually doesn't take me more than an hour or so to get it done. With my videos, I already have the music and stuff saved, so I don't have to hunt it down. Yeah, it's definitely it's the same for me. Usually, that if I'm working on my own videos, at least I know what I'm doing with that because I don't have to go look for everything the whole time and all that kind of stuff. But now, for each video that I have to make for the day job, uh, it's actually horrible. I shouldn't call it my day job because it's not. But for the other job, for the freelance work, you kind of have to find I have to find new music every time because it's very different from project to project what I'd be working on for a video. Yeah. Shannon says, thank you, it's coming together. Well done. I'm really glad for you. That's awesome. All right. So now random question time. Megan, do you feel like sharing an excerpt?
Sure. Only gonna share a little bit. I mean, there's only a little bit there anyway, but I don't want to take too much time from our writing time. Although we are like ahead of schedule, so
I
we're doing
know.
really well. But yeah, okay. I'll start from actually where I just began. So dark corridors and drafty hallways. The palace was full of windowless roads and cold stones, which made Kira's feet ache. She could not escape the feeling of being hopelessly lost or out of place. She had yet to find a place where she felt comfortable. After Mistress Alyssa's dismissal, she wandered for some time, sticking to the places where less courtiers and other guests traversed. Finally, Kira sought her father because more than anything, she wanted to go home. The door to his room stood firmly closed, and she knocked hesitantly. He often had to serve Lord Bainbury, and she felt as if he was a ghost here. However, this time she was lucky, and he answered on the first knock. Come in, he said, after scrutinizing her face. He bustled to the small stove in his chambers. He set a kettle on it as she trudged into the room. Outfitted with a wash basin, the stove, bed, and wardrobe, his room far outranked hers. A threadbare rug even adorned the floor and took away some of the chill. What is it? He asked, knowing something was wrong as she scrunched her toes against the rug. Before we came, I asked you about why Mistress Alyssa chose me. He nodded, taking a seat on the bed as the water on the stove began to boil. She sighed. I don't want to stay here. Please, is there any way that I can go? She'd been about to say home, but was Bainbury Estate her home? She didn't know where she wanted to go, only that she wanted to leave here. Maybe Bainbury Estate would do for now. At least she would have Edric. And I don't know if you remember, but in the, I guess last week, we ended on someone who was in her bed. So that was Edric. So Edric was just kind of like taking a nap. And so
Okay.
I guess we didn't really meet him as a character, but anyway, he's just like her best friend. And so she wants to go back. She's somewhere else right now.
Okay. Cool. No, well done. I think it's really cool, and I'm excited to see where the story is going. So that's going to be really nice. Hopefully, but no pressure. I don't want you to feel like, oh gosh, someone pushing me. I have to. Yeah, because it's not a nice feeling either. But
I mean, it could be kind of good because then I'll be like, oh, she's expecting something. I got to work on it.
yeah, not to compare myself with the person that I'm going to use as an example just now, but I think it was J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were critique partners. And J.R.R. Tolkien said that he would never have finished The Lord of the Rings if C.S. Lewis wasn't constantly asking him where the next part was. So maybe that works out, but maybe, maybe
Yeah,
we're not C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. So
that's cool.
yeah, but yeah. So yeah, shall we do our next 15 minutes?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, and just as an aside, I decided, you know what, it's Saturday, so I'm not going to keep working. I am now going to work on my own book. So that's awesome. Yay! But yeah, in case you guys are wondering also why randomly at this moment the computer is like really close to my face, I'm sitting on my bed under blankets because it's winter and it's really cold. So, and my cat decided that he wants to be under my knees. So now at the moment I'm holding the computer up with my knees with a cat underneath, and now that's just why I'm like really up close and personal, very intimate with you guys, and it's not purposeful, and I don't want anyone to feel weird, but that's just so you know. But yeah, okay, so 15 minutes counting down, and I'll see you guys. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. and time. How did you guys do? Let me know.
Let's see. Well, I finished that scene that I was working on, and I started on another part further down. So fairly well, I think.
Cool.
I didn't count words because it's in two different places, so too much to actually figure that out. But how about you? You said you're going to work on one of your own pieces, right?
Yeah. Basically, at the moment, what I'm doing is uh, book 3. I am actually rereading the first 4 chapters because that chapter that I had to write in before was basically right in the middle. And now I just want to make sure that there's continuity between what had happened before and what happened in the 5th chapter so that it makes sense in the rest of the book. So that's basically what I'm doing. I'm mostly rereading. It's going quite well. I'm surprisingly surprised at, or pleasantly surprised at how well it's going. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Do you want to share something?
Okay, let's see. You caught me.
Yes.
Yeah. One bit that I thought was actually really nice is from a bit earlier, so let me just go find that. Mm. But it depends if you want to, because I think you haven't read book 2 yet, The Heir's Choice.
That's true. I haven't yet.
Yeah, so I'll just have to make sure that I don't spoil anything.
Oh no. Okay.
Let me put it that way: in the event that you want to one day read The Heir's Choice, so no pressure.
No, I want to read it. I just haven't gotten to it yet. All right.
Oh, no, it's fine. The more I'm saying that, the more passive aggressive it sounds. I don't mean it like that. What I mean is, I understand. I'm not trying to kind of hint at like, are you reading my book yet? So that's not what I'm trying to do at all. But yeah, no. So if you haven't gotten to it, perfect. If you get to it, perfect. It's kind of it's cool. I'm really appreciative that you did read the first one because it's really nice to know that you did. So I appreciate that a lot. Let's see. Okay. Mm, found more or less where this is. Okay, let me just start here and see how far we get. Okay. James clutched his books tighter on his way to class. Every step he took built up his nervous energy singing through his insides. It had only been a few weeks since he'd left Grayston in search of Callan, but it felt like years. He looked around him, seeking the sense of familiarity that made Grayston more home to him than the marble tomb his parents had bought and called a house. He needed the comfort of knowing that at least here he could pretend that nothing was wrong and everything was well, that he was strong and confident and worthy, that he knew what the fuck was going on. But he couldn't. Nothing was the same anymore, except for Ward, who walked next to him in silence. His face was vacant. His thoughts were probably a light year away. James longed for the serenity that seemed innate to Ward, but every passing second added to the urgency seething inside him. Why was he even here? He needed to be back in Ladrian, training. He'd risked Ladrian's safety so that he could get the Three Kings to help free Callan. That had been the most important thing, to get her to safety. So he'd bargained with the only thing he had on him. And now he was the only person powerful enough to ensure Ladrian's safety against Ulrich. But he wasn't powerful. He had nothing real to offer them. No sign that there was any kind of magic running through his veins. Conroy Phipps, the keeper of Fendron Castle, an all-round asshole, said he'd train him, but then sent him back to school as soon as they arrived back on Earth. All the while, the day of reckoning was coming when everyone would expect him to stand up against Ulrich with the camera. And he was at school, pretending that nothing was going on, that his life wasn't permanently changed by the fact that he was an honest-to-God mate, that there wasn't a real possibility that he wouldn't measure up. Maybe it was better to make a run for it. Maybe he still would if their first training session didn't work out. But where would he go? Grayson was the only place where he belonged. Noreen sidled up to him and slipped her arm through his. Please talk to me. He stared at her. It was strange. She always came up to him like this. It was familiar, but now it disorientated him, having a mundane conversation while his whole world looked ready to crumble down again. But it offered him an escape from his thoughts and fears. He took in her trim-linked blonde hair and blue eyes, the same color as her cousin Claire's, but the resemblance ended there. Claire's eyes were soulful. Noreen seemed more like a doll's in comparison. He'd never noticed that before. What about? Anything but that mouse, she snapped. Callan? Yes, she is, her eyes flashing. You'd think her absence would get her expelled, but no. James frowned. He couldn't blame her for expecting him to be anti-Callan. After all, Noreen had been his co-conspirator in the plot to get rid of her. But now he couldn't do it. I think I'll stop here before it goes on too long. It was a bit too early still because I had a nice thing that I thought would be nice, but it's a bit lower down, then it's going to take forever. So, but yeah.
Oh, it's interesting though they're back at the school.
Yeah. It was always the intention to kind of start at the school and get back to the school. So what happened was when I signed my publishing contract, I had to split the first book into two. So The Vanished Knight and The Heir's Choice are kind of like two halves of a volume. So I'm kind of thinking of structuring the whole thing that way in the end, because this is now book 3 now is also kind of two halves of a volume again. So I'm thinking of just doing it that way all the time because it kind of naturally fell that way and it seems like the right way to do it. So we'll see. But yeah. So the thing about book 3 is that it's definitely more trying to balance being at school while still dealing with all the crap from the other world. So it's like that was the whole thing. First book basically, or the first 2 books basically sets all that up. But now we're getting to the fun part that I always wanted to get to, which was the whole save the world, but you still need to make the grade, So that's kind of
Wow. Yeah, it's like juggling 2 different lives they're trying to figure out. So that sounds really interesting though.
kind
And
of.
I got a sneak peek look that I know that they're at least going to make it back to the school.
I'm so sorry. I knew I was going to spoil something.
It's okay. I think it's fun. Then I'll get to see how it all connects once you get that one out. No pressure.
Yeah, yeah, no pressure. No, it's like even like the stuff that I talked about now as I was writing. I'm like, gosh, everything connects. It's like really hard for me not to spoil like anything because everything in the first 2 books kind of just got dragged kicking and screaming into the third book. But so I kind of went with, okay, the lesser of the spoilery kind of stuff I'm going to reveal here, but I did censor some of it out for your benefit. So, but yeah, it's definitely the for me when I started writing this, I went into writing a portal fantasy with the idea of changing it into being one that's not like the usual thing where you kind of walk away from the world and then it's the end of it, or that the story begins and ends basically according to whether or not you're there or not. So that was actually a difficult part of writing the first 2 books even, was to figure out how to make it so that the 2 worlds actually interact. So
Yeah. Oh,
so
that's
that was
impressive. Good.
not a spoiler because that's kind of, it's all there. But yeah. So, okay, let's see. Nobody's commenting. I'm feeling terrible. None of our chat people are saying anything. Oh
Oh,
well.
we
Oh,
want to know what you were doing while we were and while we've been talking to you.
yeah, maybe. But do you want to share an excerpt from your writing?
Um, sure. Let's see where I'm at. Actually, I'm going to so after the scene with her father, there's this other part. So I'm gonna read you from that. Okay.
Cool.
So After returning to her room, she tossed and turned for hours. Laguna returned late, but even when the Selkie stopped moving around, Kira still found it difficult to rest her mind. She didn't know when she slipped into sleep, but she did. Singing woke her. Foreign vowels and unearthly tones that wove its way into her dreams. She blinked and sat up in her bed. Laguna snored softly but didn't wake. The singing slowed and deepened. Not like the fairy music for celebrations, this song seemed to be furtive and mysterious. Her ears twitched and she threw a robe over her nightclothes as she peered into the hall. Nothing moved, and after a last glance behind her, she followed its sound. Down hallways, around corners, up staircases, and down some. Kira stepped lightly. Early morning daylight filtered through the palace's windows, but everyone slept. The haunting music continued, increasing in pace as if something now hurried along. Kira yawned, her eyes watered, and she took in her surroundings. The fine tapestries depicting the moon shadow family increased in number along this hallway, and large gilded doors stood at the end. She frowned. Those imposing doors appeared to be where the royals slept, but where were the guards? The song continued, floating along with a hushed beckoning, and it came from beyond those doors. Kira's heart ratcheted into a thunderous beat as she tiptoed closer. She tried to see through the keyhole, but there is nothing but shadows. The song continued, whispering its deceit, and this close, Kira knew. It was a spell. Her senses tingled. Something was wrong. The guards were gone, and she just knew. Something was in the royal's wing. Something that shouldn't be. All right, and then I'm going to cut it off there.
Da, da, da.
Cliffhanger, what's going to happen next?
What is going to happen next?
Yeah.
That does sound interesting. So I'm really intrigued to see where you're going to go with that now.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, but I think it sounds like really exciting. So I'm so excited. I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep saying that because I'm totally fangirling about your writing. So
Thanks.
yeah. Okay, so shall we do another 15 minutes?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to count down again. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and And time, how did you do?
Let's see. I got a little bit farther. Let me see. We're at 435 words.
Nice.
Sorry, I'm working on finishing like this one sentence.
Okay. No, I'm sitting here. I'm like, should I be interrupting?
I'm sorry. Yes. How did you do?
I'm still reading. I'm if I have this like face expression going on at the moment, it's because of Darian. So I'm at the scene where he kind of gets shown. Yeah, but I can't tell you because it's a spoiler. So
Oh no.
yeah. Oh.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. No, because it's kind of it spoils kind of the main thing about the end of the second book.
Okay, that's fair. I haven't read that book yet, so
Yeah.
let's get on that, and then you won't have to worry about like spoiling at least some of the stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of that's important, you know. I try, you know, it's so difficult now because in the first two books when people used to comment on them, they're like, what about this, what about this, what about this? Now I'm starting to answer those kinds of questions in the book, but now the problem is every time I talk about it, it's like, gosh, if someone hasn't read those first two books, they're either going to be hopelessly lost
Right.
or they're going to have like the ending spoiled for the first two, which is well, yeah, not the nicest thing to do to people. I tried really hard for the first two books. Even if I answered them, I answered really vaguely because I didn't want to spoil the rest of the series or just the general experience for them. But still, yeah. Hmm. Do you want to share an excerpt?
Sure. Um, I'm gonna start, I guess, at the beginning of this next scene. So after what happened, I mean, you'll find out what happened. I just won't read it because that'll take too long to get through it. What happened when she was approaching that royal hallway? So it's pretty clear what happens. I'm pretty sure I have kind of like a small sentence in here about it. So we'll start from here. Security increased over the next few weeks. More and more guards walked the hallways, and now one followed Mistress Alyssa around too. Kira even felt the guard's eyes on her. She wished that she had the power to shapeshift into something small and insignificant. She wanted to disappear. Very few knew the truth of what had happened in the king's rooms, but still rumors spread. More eyes followed her, even though she trailed behind the elegantly dressed Alyssa. It was with anticipation and relief that fall would be ending soon, meaning she could start counting the days to her departure. Mistress Alyssa made no mention of Kira leaving, but that was to be expected. The ball came first, after all. Kira waited in a chair as Mistress Alyssa got fitted by the court seamstress. Stiff and with a very straight back, she wondered why anyone would design a chair that was so uncomfortable. She perched on the edge of it while the seamstress complimented and kissed Alyssa's ego. The dress would have a pale pink muslin at its base. No, as it. Yeah, okay, sorry. Sometimes I correct things as I read it. And then lace that showed the blushing color beneath. The lace designed in intricate knots and looking like the Baneberry coat of arms. A white cape would fall from Alyssa's shoulders partway down her back and could be hooked on the skirt to keep it in line. It seemed excessive to Kira and very likely to rip. She hoped the seamstress delivered the dress at the last moment because she didn't want to be the one responsible for caring for it. While the ball would be held across the 3 different ballrooms, dawn, dusk, and midnight, servants were relegated to their own party in a small hallway near the main entrance. No doubt the wind would find its way in, and Kara planned to bring a heavy coat to combat the drafty hallway. There wouldn't be many servants attending that party anyway, since the majority would have to serve the nobles at theirs. Kira rubbed the sleeve of her dress between her fingers. The thick material had worn out in places, mainly around the hem and elbows. She would have liked a new dress, or better yet, pants and a tunic that fit better. Color didn't matter so long as it wasn't anything bright or noticeable. You may change out of it now, Mistress Alyssa, the seamstress said. Alyssa hopped behind the divider, and the seamstress took a seat near Kira. Have you considered your own gown for the ball? She asked. Kira laughed, shaking her head. I can't afford this. Besides, the servants' ball isn't a grand affair. The seamstress frowned. Her eyebrows narrowed as she studied Kira. The gaze made her feel as if she was on display, and she rose to her feet. I need to attend Mistress Alyssa. Are you not Lady Wildercut? Kira shook her head. You have the wrong fairy. I've never heard that name. I'm Kira Ragwort. The seamstress shook her head. My eyes must be failing me, she said. You look the picture of the last Wildercut I served in Sealy. And that's where I'm going to end it, because that's actually where I ended it.
Nice going. Nice. But I also like how you're starting to set things up. It does seem like there are interesting things afoot, so really cool.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, it feels like it's rushing in some places, especially near the beginning, so we'll see.
Yeah, sometimes it happens that you rush a bit, but fix it and edit. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once I actually get the first draft, then I'll actually go back and make the good edits that improve upon everything else.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. People have a tendency to talk like it's the rough draft that's the real thing that makes a story, but I'm of the opinion that it's the edits, because the writing has the function of getting everything down so that you can edit it, but it's not, you don't really ever fix anything until it's already finished with the draft and you start. Well, I mean, if you edit as you go, you can do it as well, but I mean, for me, I find that the draft is nice, but it's the editing that makes a book more book-like. So that's kind of where I like to work.
Agreed.
Yeah. Shall I continue where I left off for my excerpt?
Yes.
All right. Okay. James frowned. He couldn't blame her for expecting him to be anti-Callan. After all, Noreen had been his co-conspirator in their plot to get rid of her. But now he couldn't do it. Would had been right when it said that Callan didn't deserve this level of hate. But James hadn't gotten what he meant. All he'd seen was a threat that Callan posed, that she could supplant him in his parents' limited affections. It seemed only fair to make her feel unwelcome. She was making him feel unwelcome in his own home, or so he thought. But he'd never grasped what consistently being targeted felt like until he'd experienced the same in the Ladrian army. Sure, his parents were shitty, but they'd never tried to hurt him on sight. If anything, they were indifferent. I'm glad she didn't get expelled, he said. I went through a lot of effort to bring her back to school. Lorraine sneered at him. Don't tell me you like her too. Darian and Gawain practically fawn over her. Sorry, get the arrow down so that I can move it along. Actually, Ward inserted, stirring from his thoughts. I think I'm in love with her. James gaped at his friend. Where did that come from? Nothing earlier had indicated any sort of feeling harbour towards Callan. But now he seemed so sincere he couldn't possibly be lying. And yet it was there, a tiny wicked glint in his eye. He was deliberately winding Noreen up. Then you're a fool, Noreen stated. She's totally fake. Fake? Ward sighed with a dramatic flare James had never realized he had. I think she's a dream. Noreen's face turned a mottled red. She's wearing a wig. James shook his head to recover from his friend's new talent. Just because she wears a wig doesn't mean she's fake. You're taking her side. Her cold blue eyes spat sparks at him. Well, where did that rage come from? I'm not taking sides. I just don't see why you hate her so much. I do, Ward said. Noreen is worried that Callan will take her place on the list. Seriously, the list. That stupid, superficial thing where the kids voted on who was more dateable in school? No, no way. Noreen wasn't that shallow, was she? No, Noreen snarled. No mouse could do that. She's not a mouse, Noreen. She's always ducking behind that stupid wig. And if she told him to go away anymore, she would be wearing his skin. Would you have preferred she showed up a princess in all her glory? Glory my ass. James shook his head. Whatever you think of her, I'm not going to help you go after her. Are you serious? Dead serious. I sacrificed more than you understand to bring her home. I'm not going to ruin that for her. Doreen smiled and shifted closer, trailing her finger down his thigh. Look who's suddenly grown into a man. Was that it? Had he just grown up? Maybe. That could be why her flirtation made him restless instead of pleased. I'm serious, Marie. Leave Callan alone. What? She purred. You think you have something on me, my love? I might just casually mention some things I know to Leighton, Ward said. I'll do anything to protect her. Maureen all but shoved James aside to step up to Ward. What's that, great? You do nothing with James and say so. Ward's dreamy smile shifted. Without as much as moving a muscle, his expression grew feral, more a show of teeth than a grin. Maureen backed closer to James, but Ward stepped forward, looming over her with the extra height he'd gained over the summer. The muscles he'd gained in training flexed under his uniform. Something cold trailed up James's spine. What the hell was he looking at? Ward was quiet, content to remain in James's shadow. Always had been in all the years they'd grown up together. What was this then? Try me, Noreen, Ward murmured. I dare you. She wisely backed down, looking to James. Pull your dog to heel. James shoved down the fireflies in his
Oh boy. I think the screen's frozen. Well, that seems to be a problem. Um, let's see. Hmm. All right. Seems like Misha got taken off the live stream. Potentially connection issues is my guess. So I'm not really sure what to do for this. I've never had this happen before. I think she said she was still having those hurricane winds. So hopefully things are okay over there and that it's just that her connection is probably out. So I'm gonna guess that we're going to end the hangout early today. Only 8 minutes early though, so that shouldn't be too bad. And yeah, Thanks for joining us if you're still watching, and I hope that your writing goes well.